Om Madhyanamirandasya Jnanam Janashalakaya Chaksharun Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nam Shreshtam Manumapi Satyaputram Atra Swarupam Rupam Tasya Grajamarupurim Mathadim Varstavatim Radha Kundam Giribaram Maho Radhikamadhavasam Prapto Yasya Pratita Gripaya Shri Gurum Tam Natasmi Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyaiva Cham Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Nikhila Shruti Mauli Ratnamala Dhyate Nirajita Padapankajanta Aji Mukta Kulairu Paschamanam Paritashram Harinam Samshrayami Anarpita Charim Chirat Karunayavatirna Kalu Shamar Paitumam Nataj Balarasam Swabhakti Shriyam Hari Purata Sundara Dyuti Kadamba Sandipitaham Sada Hridaye Kandaresh Purato Vasachinandana Ajanulambita Bhujjo Kanakavadato Sankirtanai Kapitaro Kamalaya Taksham Vishwambaro Dhiyabaro Jugadharma Palo Vande Jagat Priyakaro Karunavataro Ladini Shakti Sarupaya Gauranga Shuridaya Cha Bhakta Shakti Pradhanaya Gadadhara Namastute He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Radhe Vrindavanadhishe Karunamrita Vahine Kripaya Nijapadabjada Shanmayam Pradiyatam Bhaktya Bihina Aparat Lakshaya Chiptasya Kamadhitaranga Madhye Kripam Maitvam Saranam Prapanam Binde Maste Charanarvindam Binde Maste Charanarvindam Srila Gurudev ki jai, Shriman Mahaprabhu ki jai, Shri Shri Radha Damodar ji ki jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, Go Shri Ekadasi ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Gaur Premanand Hari Hari Bo. So, so good evening to all of you. Pranam. Thanks so much for coming, and it's my pleasure to join you today in our last evening meeting in our series of lectures concerning Mahaprabhu's pastimes in Sri Navadvipa Dham. We have been speaking about Mahaprabhu's Lila in Jagannath Puri in our previous visit to Bulgaria. It was what, like 4 months ago or something. So now we chose to complement that by speaking on Sri Navadvipa Lila. So today is our last meeting. We have been speaking about the ontology of Mahaprabhu, the ultimacy of Gaur Tattva, the birth of Sri Gaur Sundar, Janma Bhumi, Janma Lila, then his pastimes as a child, Kumar Lila, then as a boy, Poganda Lila, then as a youth, Kishore Lila, and then as a further youth, Jovana Lila. And today we reached our last part, which strictly speaking is not a pastime in Navadvip, but it's quite connected to it, and it's like a bridge to what comes after that, which is Puri Lila, which is Mahaprabhu's sannyas, the acceptance when Nimai, where Vishvambar becomes Sri Krishna Caitanya, another chapter. So we will conclude our series today speaking on the Sannyasa-lila of Sri Chaitanya Dev. But as usual, first we will share some words about what we spoke yesterday, when we described some pastimes of the Jovana-lila period. Jovana-lila is from 16 years onwards in Navadvipa, many of them revolving around Sankirtan, night Sankirtan at Sriva Sangam, and many of them surrounding people trying to enter into the night Sankirtan without having the eligibility for doing so. We began with that, with Srivas Thakur's mother-in-law trying to sneak out into the Sankirtan and not being able to be there, and Mahaprabhu not feeling the usual joy, and with this making the point, certain specific layers of spiritual experience are mostly reserved for people with the proper adhikar. Everyone is potentially invited there, but one has to have the adhikar to enter there in order to basically survive, if you will, the intensity of those situations. So we spoke about that. We spoke about the Advaitacharya trying to offer respect to Mahaprabhu, not receiving respect, trying to take his dust, and trying to starting to preach to speak about Gyan Abu Bhakti. So he received the mercy of Mahaprabhu in the form of sweet chastisement, and Mahaprabhu gives mercy to Advaita almost to the point of killing him. No, I'm not Advaita in ecstasy, just being grateful. Finally, you are not respecting me, and finally you are chastising me. That's what I wanted, basically. Thank you so much. And different other leelas with Suklambar Brahmachari, who was Sudam in Krishna Lila, Mahaprabhu taking from him the raw rice, or Mahaprabhu playing this drama in the house of Chandrasekhar and dancing like Lakshmi and Rukmini and other Shaktis and Devis, and the devotees contemplating that. Some leelas with Murari Gupta as well, the so-called aparad of Sachi, who offended, quote unquote, Advaitacharya, and so on. Gopal Chapal trying to blaspheme Srivas Pandit by putting some ingredients in the door of his house. I don't want to enter into details. We'll repeat the same class again if not. No? I know that can happen. What else? Mahaprabhu planting this tree, immediately one seed and immediately mango tree coming, or Mahaprabhu being with an astrologer who asked him, who were you in your previous life? Mahaprabhu asked to the astrologer, who was I in the previous life? He said, the astrologer made all the calculations, said, you were God. And you are God, because if you were God means you are Bhagavan. And Mahaprabhu said, no, you must be mistaken. I was a cowherd boy in my previous life. I was such a nice Vaisya that by accruing proper piety, punya, now I was born in a higher birth as a Brahmana. No, basically. And then we concluded almost with the conversion of Chandkasi and the opposition that came to the Sankirtan at that time, and how the Sankirtan through this lila went out of the house of Srivas and went through all Navadvipa and eventually reaching the shores of Sofia, Bulgaria, and other places around the world. And also we spoke about the pastime where Srivas' son is dying in the midst of the kirtan, and how Srivas reacts to that, and how Mahaprabhu reacts to Srivas' reaction. And we concluded last lecture with something connected to today's topic, which is this lila in which, again, another person without the adhikar wants to enter the night kirtan, because nonetheless the kirtans were out of Sriva Sangam. But at night, Mahaprabhu continued with his intimate group executing rasas and kirtans. So there was one Brahmin who claimed, I have the right to enter there because I only drink milk, which is super sattvic and super pious and dharmic on certain level of consideration. But on the bhakti level of Sri Caitanya Dev, that was not enough, how to say, like merit to be present there. So basically he said that, and this Brahmin further showed that he was not having the enough merit, because he started to get enraged with Mahaprabhu and cursed him. He told him, your family life and your material life will be a total disaster. So Mahaprabhu said, go, Hari. So this guy's blessing through the curse of the Brahmin. And of course, this is in connection to what we will see today, the Sannyasa-lila, which it was a necessity of the unfolding of the lila on earth. So actually that Brahmana cursing Mahaprabhu was instrumental in all the other things to happen. So we are not to point at the Brahma as such a demon. He shouldn't have done that. No, but he was instrumentalized by the internal energy of Bhagavan to do that. So that's like the beginning of the whole thing, no? How Mahaprabhu's Leela starts to unfold with the curse of the Brahman. But there is much more to say. So today we will continue on that, trying to understand the different levels of reasons as to why Mahaprabhu accepted sannyas in connection to the external reasons for his descent, to the internal reason for his descent, and so on. So in this connection, it is said that after the curse of the Brahman, again, this Sannyasa-lila started to unfold gradually more and more dynamically. And one day Mahaprabhu was singing Sankirtan in the street by himself, totally mad in love, in Radha Bhav, in the mood of Radha internally. And he was chanting Gopi, 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 Gopi. So that's not the usual Kirtan, mantra we recite on Sankirtan. Generally, we are not on the street singing Gopi, Gopi. Mahaprabhu will do these things. As we mentioned in the Rath Yatra, he will sing like a secular pop song of the time, love song, and everyone was like, what's that? I mean, you are supposed to sing Jagannatha Swami Nayana Patagami Bhava Tume or Mahamantra or something, but this is not in the songbook. I mean, the song you are singing is basically something from the radio or something like that, no? But Rupa Goswami could understand what he was about. So in this way, here Mahaprabhu was singing Gopi, Gopi, Gopi in ecstasy. So then one Sanskrit scholar approached him and said, you shouldn't be chanting Gopi, Gopi, Gopi. No, I mean, that's not correct. That's not in the scripture, in the book. No? So you should chant the name of Krishna, not Gopi, Gopi. And by chanting the name of Krishna, you will acquire punya. Punya means like material piety. He was not referring Bhakti Sukriti, but material piety. So by chanting Krishna, you will acquire material piety and you will have a good, basically, material life. That was his conception of chanting the name of Krishna, of this person. So basically, Mahaprabhu, when hearing that, to put it in brief words, he took a stick and started to chase the person, trying to hit the person by saying that, to go to the point. And of course, there are many explanations as to why he did that, from something more external to something more internal. All of that is internal. So one idea is that Mahaprabhu heard this person saying, a Brahmin, so-called Brahmin, saying, chant the name of Krishna so you improve your material situation. So actually, that's one of the 10 nama parats, no? To consider Krishna nama as something on the level of karma kanda. So to use the name for that, to use Krishna for that. So Mahaprabhu couldn't tolerate this Vaishnava parat, so he wanted to give mercy to stop that. No? But even on a deeper level, as we mentioned, Mahaprabhu is Krishna, as we mentioned. Radha Bhava Dyuti Shubhalitam Nomi Krishna Sarupam. He's Krishna, but in Radha Bhav, more and more as the Leela unfolds. So in this moment, Mahaprabhu was in Radha Bhav, and he was experiencing man for Krishna. Man means transcendental anger. When Sri Radha gets angry with Krishna, and that's not so easy for him to pacify her in those moments. You know, there are many Leelas in which Krishna himself cannot do anything, and he has to take shelter in Radha's maidservants and fall to their feet and start to pray to them, please allow me back into the Kunja. Sri Radha doesn't want to see me, to speak with me. And Krishna, the one who, unto whose feet the whole universe is bowing down, he himself is bowing down at this point, so he can reobtain Radha's audience, darshan. So in this moment, Mahaprabhu was in this particular moment, internal moment, in Radha Bhav, in Man. Man means Radha is angry with Krishna, and she doesn't want to see Krishna. I mean, she always wants to see Krishna, but part of the Leela, in order to increase the experience of rasa, is, I don't want to see you. No. So the point is, she doesn't want to see Krishna. She doesn't want to hear about the name of Krishna. Again, in that particular mood. So this person tells Mahaprabhu, you should chant the name of Krishna. So you can imagine, no? Mahaprabhu and Radha Bhav in Man telling, chant the name of Krishna, such rascal, such womanizer, playboy, liar. Bring me a stick here. She started to chase them. No? No? So all the devotees that were with Mahaprabhu somehow pacified Sri Chaitanya, Sri Gaur Sundar, because he was running to hit this person, but the student ran, the Brahmin ran really totally scared. He never expected such a reaction. So he went to other Sanskrit scholars and Brahmins that were quite proud of their learning, and he started to share, this Nimai Pandit is going totally crazy. I presented the proper religious principle of chanting Krishna Nam for material piety, and he took a stick and wanted to beat me. So we have to do something. He's totally mad and he's against our religion. So they started even to organize to give him a good, how do you say in English? To chastise Mahaprabhu and to beat him, all of them together. So of course Mahaprabhu, being Bhagavan himself, his omniscient side is there. So he knew, oh, they are organizing this. And basically he felt, I mean, I came to this world, one of the reasons for this is to deliver all of them, but they are planning to beat me. So this is not working, no? For which there's another reason that we may say it's part of the cause for his acceptance sannyas. Because at this moment Mahaprabhu thinks, which arrangement can I make so these people who are planning to beat me or who do not appreciate what I am about, what I am experiencing internally, and instead they misunderstand me and try to beat me, which adjustment can I make so they can offer me some respect? Not because I want respect, but by them offering me respect, they will attain some sukriti and disposition to appreciate what I want to give. So, of course, the conclusion of this will be sannyas, no? Which at that time, in that culture, sannyas is something like appreciated. Even today, if you go to India, generally, sannyas is like Jai Maharaj. No? And of course, if you are one of those Maharaj, you have to know how to deal with that humbly also, because you can go crazy as well. That's another series of lectures. But the point is, Mahaprabhu say, yeah, I think that I will accept sannyas. So these people who now are offending me, they will offer me some respect. And by that offering of respect, they will be freed from their offenses. And they will be able to appreciate what I am about and what I want to share with them. So again, in one sense, we can say this sannyas of Mahaprabhu is a preaching strategy, basically. It's an adjustment. It's an external trick to address the audience in a particular way. Because again, in the deepest sense of the term, Mahaprabhu is not a sannyas. We do not worship Mahaprabhu as sannyas. We will never see a deity of Mahaprabhu on the altar as a sannyasi. He's always as Nimai, because we project to serve him eternally, Nitya now, as Nimai, as Vishvambar, not as Sri Caitanya Dev. That's a Naimitika Lila, which means an occasional pastime, which is beautiful and totally instructive for us to go through it and eventually converge into Navadvipa and Mahaprabhu there. No? That's basically the idea. So in this way, Mahaprabhu is making this adjustment to bless and deliver the fallen souls. But again, he doesn't need to do that adjustment when he is in Golok. There's nobody to deliver there. So there's no need to accept sannyas. That's the point, basically. No? He himself is saying many times, no, Naham vipro nachanara patirnapi vaishyana sudro, Naham varnina chagriha patir novanasto yatir ba. Yatir ba. He said, I'm not Brahma, Sudra, Vaisya, Kshatriya, I'm not Brahmachari, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, nor sannyasi. He said that being a sannyasi, no? But he said, Gopi Bhartu Pada Kamalayor Dasa Das Anudasa. I'm just the servant of the servant of the servant of Krishna, the beloved of the gopis. That's my internal conception. So even a sannyasi should feel like this. No? One shouldn't get too much attached to I'm a sannyasi, because eternally we do not project to be sannyasis ourselves. In Golok Vrindavan, in Nityananda, we won't be sannyasis there. Mostly all of them will be grihastas in the lila. So do not be too much attached to I'm a monastic. If that helps, great, but lila is another thing. So Mahaprabhu, when he realized all this, no, that they want to give him beat him and so on, he said, he gave like a riddle. You follow what's a riddle? So he said like, I prepare Pipalikanda, which is like a kind of Ayurvedic medicine to cure when you have too much mucus. I should take that now. But I say, but when I gave this medicine, all the sickness only increased. No, like implying this idea. No, I'm trying to give something, but instead of appreciating that, they are attacking that. So it is said that he say this like how to say, mysterious words, if you will. Not everyone understood that, but Nityananda Prabhu was present there and he could understand, and his heart started to feel agitated because he understood where all this will take. No? Mahaprabhu will take sannyas, which means he will leave Navadvipa and so on. Here we are back. Sorry, connection was not that good, but here we are changing the connection. So 1 minute.
Should be on.
Okay, let me see.
It's iPhone.
What's the name? iPhone. Let's see. iPhone. Not iPhone, not appearing yet.
Turn it on.
Marina's phone, iPhone?
Yeah.
Okay, now appear. And password is? Okay. Have a similar one.
Yeah.
If you want to know the password of the devotee, for sure it has 100 and eggs. And some ball or some, I don't know. So I was telling that that Mahaprabhu took Nityananda to a secluded place because he realized he got what I was saying. And of course, Nityananda Prabhu is also his elder brother, mostly in Krishna-lila. In Gaur-lila, he behaves more like a baby in one point. Mahaprabhu has to, as we mentioned, to make sure everyone is appreciating him properly. But nonetheless, he's Baladev. He's the principle of the guru. He kind of went with Nityananda and mentioned, I'm planning to take sannyas. Like when you have that idea, we'll go to Sri Guru, we'll go to some authority. Because again, and he says all this, I came to give Krishna now to the world, but when what I'm trying to deliver, that I'm being criticized. So I think I can take this caution and these measurements and this adjustment so people will take me more seriously and gradually appreciate the value of Srinam. So he asked Nityananda, do you give me your blessings, your approval? Which again, it's totally painful for the devotees. It implies he will travel and go and nobody will be with him at some moments. And so, but he said, whatever you want to do, you will do. You are the independent Supreme Lord, but I suggest that you do all this through the agency of your devotees. Not like implying Bhagavan is independent in one sense, but at the same time, he's dependent on his devotees. So please go to your devotees. So Mahaprabhu goes to some of these devotees, for example, goes to Mukunda, as we mentioned, was his intimate singer, Caitanya. And Mukunda again was shocked by hearing the idea, like sannyas? No, sannyas. Again, sannyas means goodbye, basically, especially in those times. Not the standard of sannyas, for example, you accept sannyas, you are not supposed to return to the village you were born, basically. So Mahaprabhu was a town boy of Navadvipa. All Navadvipa was in love with him, and they were living with him, and now the Sankirtan movement was flourishing, and everyone was being part of that. And at that point, Mahaprabhu is saying, I'm leaving now. So you can imagine how the Dhambasis, the Nadia Basis were shocked by that. But again, they said, but what can I say? You will do whatever you can do and whatever is better. But at least stay a little bit more in Navadvipa. At least stay with us in Kirtan a little bit more. No? Because again, you won't return here. So please, a little bit more. So after that, Mahaprabhu goes to Gadadhar Pandit, another very intimate associates. We know Shri Radha is in Gaur Lila. And Gadadhar Pandit is a Pandit, and a devotee. So he starts to argue with Mahaprabhu and present arguments from Shastra about why, against the idea of him accepting sannyas. No. So there is place for that. There's a nice kirtan of Mahaprabhu and Bhaktivinoda Thakur when he prays, where we Nimai return to Navadvipa and leave his sannyas, and return with all of us to Navadvipa and perform kirtan in Srivasangam forever. So he's speaking as an inhabitant of Navadvipa. You generally do not say to a sannyasi, when will you leave your sannyas, please? But we have to understand the feeling of the inhabitants of the Dham. It's like Krishna going out of Vrindavan. Basically, that's the parallel of Mahaprabhu's sannyas. And we will see why he's doing this. So Gadadhar starts to argue, like, you don't need to accept sannyas to engage in bhakti. Bhakti is so powerful that, as Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, Grihe tako vani tako sadahari bali tako. You can be in the forest as a monk, you can be at home. Bhakti is so powerful that you don't need to be a monk or something. I mean, you can remain at home with all of us. No? And then he said, you preach it. Remember when you converted Chand Kasi? You preached that he was you asked him, you not kill your, consider them in Vedic culture. So Mahaprabhu was telling the Chankasi, you are eating your mother, no? But so do not kill your mother. But Gadadhar is saying to Mahaprabhu, but by you acceptance, you are doing the same thing, because you will kill Sachi, your mother. You will leave her forever. Remember all the things that she lost already. No? 8 daughters, then Vishwarup accepted sannyas, then Jagannath Mishra died, then your first wife Lakshmi Priya died, and now you are accepting sannyas. She won't be seeing you anymore. So you will be killing your mother. You are not walking the talk, basically. Gadadhar Pandit said. No? But at the end of the day, Gadadhar said, but whatever you want to do, you will do it, and I cannot interfere with that. I don't want to go against your wish and your necessity. So that's like the mood of the intimate devotees. They will present their points, but at the end they will say, I'm surrendered, whatever you want. No? This is a famous example that I always like to share when Srila Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur wanted to send some of his disciples to the West. It is said that the very first person he thought about was Srila Bhakti Rakshak Dev Goswami Maharaj. Because he said, I know he won't be converted. He will go anywhere. He won't be affected and influenced. He's so fixed. So he asked him first. Srila Maharaj interestingly presented different arguments not to go, but in a particular spirit. No? As we know, he said, my English is not that well. When I speak, my speech is not very clear. My voice is not the best. Second, I'm more like an introverted person. I don't have like a character of going and conquering the world basically on this international campaign. So it's not my nature. So it may not work as you want. And third, I don't know, Guru Maharaj, how much time you will stay in this world. And I would like to remain as close as possible from you to you and draw from whatever you have to give and try to imbibe all that. So to say that Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta, with the first 2 reasons, he was not convinced. And when Srila Maharaj said the third one, he said, okay, you stay with me. Because he knew, having someone like Srila Maharaj close to me, in the future, he will be able to give all that in such a nice way. But Srila Maharaj, when he gave these 3 excuses, he was not avoiding the task. He said, this is my idea, Guru Maharaj, why I think it wouldn't be the best choice myself. But if on top of this, you still think that I should go, I'm totally ready to go. So it's not that he was not willing to go. He said, I'm totally surrendered to you. I go. But I think for this, and this, maybe someone else will be better. So similar like this, no? They're arguing with Mahaprabhu. They're saying why he shouldn't do that. But at the end of the day, they are like, whatever you want. We live to please you. No? So that's our life and soul. So in this way, Mahaprabhu was going through different devotees, and all of them were lamenting, and the news started to spread on some level. And they were lamenting mostly because of we will never see him again, basically. Again, because sannyas, especially in those times, he starts to walk, who knows where, and who knows if we will see him again. So Mahaprabhu, when he realizes all my associates are totally heartbroken. Okay. Well, like broken, no? So because they think that I won't see them again, Mahaprabhu immediately thought, no, this won't happen like this. So he addressed each one of his associates. He tried to reassure them, telling, I mean, you are my eternal associate. I cannot live without you. Even though I'm a sannyasi for certain circumstances, external circumstances, internally, I'm totally purchased by you. I belong to you. So at this moment comes the Sachimata comes into this scene, no? Because he has spoken with different devotees, but now the biggest parts will come now, which is Sachi and Vishnupriya. No? Then you have the most affected personalities by Mahaprabhu's sannyas. So let me share you some words from Caitanya Bhagavat that Vishnupriya mentions. They are in a Spanish poetry here, so I'll try to do my best while translating them. Don't expect poetry and rhyme and all that. So Sachi that addresses her Nimai, because again, she's Sachi, she will never see Nimai as Sri Chaitanya Deva Sannyasi or something like that. No? I remember not once, more than once, but and of course I'm not comparing myself with this situation, but sometimes when I post something, share something on my Facebook, my mother comments there. And of course, sometimes he comments things, her Vatsalya overflows her, and she will put, I love you. And I had to clarify, she's my mother. Just in case. Enter her profile, look the pictures, and you will see we are similar. She's almost 70 years, she's my mother. Just in case. Social media, you never know. But on other moments, she speaks in more like Aishvaric terms and says, oh, Maharaj, obeisances. And I said, like, no, you are. And other devotees say, like, they know her. I say, like, you're his mother. You cannot speak like that. You know? But also, if she says, I love you, it creates other problems. So whatever the case. But my point here is Sachi cannot conceive of her child as Sri Krishna as a sannyasi. She has maternal eyes, but Vatsalya lens, so that will be always there. As Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur gives the famous example, no? Like if the son of a mother becomes the president, and for the mother, the fact that her son is a president won't create distance. She won't feel, oh, now my son is president. Mr. President, good morning. On the contrary, her maternal love will like overflow. Oh, my beautiful baby now is the president. How sweet, how incredible is my baby. So her Vatsalya will grow instead of diminish. No? He gives that example regarding the Brajavasis. No? The Brajavasis love Krishna in a certain way. And if someone tells them, but Krishna is God, and they will say, but Jasoda will say, oh, my Lala, my child is God. How beautiful my child. God is secondary for them. No? If you say to Sridham, Subal, your friend is God. Our friend is God. Wow, we had such an incredible friend. He's even God. But the idea of God is in the background. Their Sakya is growing, and the same with every inhabitant. So that's the psychology of Braj. And of course, here we are in another upgraded, extended version of Braj, which is Navadvipa. Here we have Jashoda appearing as Sachi. You know? So she will tell, when the news reached her ears, no, your baby will accept sannyas. No, very tragically, she will address Mahaprabhu in the following way. She say, my dear son, please do not go. Do not leave your mother. This sinner only survives because she can see you. How to live without seeing your lotus eyes, your beautiful moon-like face, your red lips, and the pearl of your teeth, similar to kunda flowers. How to survive without hearing your nectarian talk and charming speech. Oh, I will no longer see you walk with your enchanting paso. Like a pace. Yeah. Yeah, gate, elephant gate, whatever. Yeah. Stay here and remain happy. Do your Sankirtan at home with your followers like Advaita and Srivas, with your intimate companion Nityananda, and with your three friends such as Gadadhar, to preach the religious principles you have ended by. How can religion imply leave one's mother? You personify Dharma, and although nevertheless you will leave your mother, how you will be able to stand in front of the world and preach to the world after doing so? Sachi, affected by Prem, spoke. Vishvambar was hearing her, and because of love, his throat became choked. Sachi. So she was no longer able to continue speaking. But she says something else at the end. I was already abandoned by your elder brother, and your father went to Vaikuntha because of separation from him. All that I was able to tolerate because I was able to see you. But if you now disappear, without a doubt, I will die. All my life, all my beloved Gauranga, do not leave your widowed mother abandoned here. Engage in your kirtan at home, and your bhaktas. I see your eyes full of love and your two long arms and your sweet speech like nectar. If there is no lamp where I live, your effulgence is giving that light. How much elixir comes from your red feet? And this way Sachi cries and cries and falls to the ground. So Mahaprabhu is trying to console his mother. You can imagine, trying to explain to her, Ma, actually, I'm your son eternally. You are my eternal mother, life after life. And in the form of my name and in the form of the deity, I will keep accompanying you in this lila. Because again, technically speaking, after sannyas, the sannyas is not expected to meet his mother again. So you can imagine. We will see that some other associate will go with Mahaprabhu. Some others will visit him 4 months a year in Chaturmasya visiting Puri, but some others will never see him again. And those others mostly are Sachi and Vishnupriya. That's why I say the two more affected ones. So Mahaprabhu is making the point, through the deity and my name, I will keep accompanying you in this lila, which is an important point for us. There Mahaprabhu is fully present, accompanying us. So in this way, Mahaprabhu continued with his Sankirtan Lila. Again, remember the devotees told him, please remain with us some more days doing Sankirtan. So he agreed with that. And they immersed themselves so much in the bliss of Sankirtan that basically everyone forgot that Mahaprabhu was about to accept sannyas, because the bliss of Sankirtan was such. So, but again, Mahaprabhu already had taken the decision, so it was just a matter of time. And casually, on those days, Keshava Bharati is visiting Navadvipa. So Keshava Bharati, as we will see, will be the sannyas guru of Mahaprabhu. So he's coming to Navadvipa on pilgrimage as a sannyasi. So Mahaprabhu is inviting him to his house, inviting him to honor prasad. And Mahaprabhu says to Keshava Bharati, I have something to ask you. I need sannyas. I want to receive sannyas from you. And Keshava Bharati acknowledged Mahaprabhu's divinity. Say, you are Bhagavan himself, so whatever you want, that will happen. So we will do whatever you want. We are just puppets in your hands. So then after this, Keshava Bharati returned to the place he was staying, which was Katwa. And that's the place where Mahaprabhu will go and receive sannyas eventually. Not yet, but that will happen eventually. So to say that this Keshava Bharati, actually the parallel with Krishna Lila, remember, the parallel of Mahaprabhu's sannyas is Krishna's leaving Vrindavan. How did Krishna leave Vrindavan? He was carried by Akrura. So this Akrura appears as Keshava Bharati in Gaur Lila, taking Mahaprabhu out of Vrindavan, out of Navadvipa, which is basically Vrindavan. So we find these parallels in the identities of the members of the Lila and how their roles play out in the different pastimes. So then Mahaprabhu goes again to Nityananda Prabhu and says, I already have the date for my sannyas fixed. That will be a Makara Sankranti. I will accept sannyas from Kesha Bharati in Katwa. So now the thing was much more concrete. I have the day, my sannyas guru, the place, so getting closer. The tragedy is getting closer and closer, basically. So he says to Nityananda, only 5 people can know about this. It's not that everyone knew about this. Of course, some intimate he already shared, but it's not that everyone single person was knowing about this. We say Sachi, Gadadhar, Brahmananda, Chandrasekhar, and Mukunda. And we seen how he spoke with them, with Mukunda, with Gadadhar, with Nityananda, and so on. So Nityananda, of course, took care that the news were not that much spread till that moment. And it is said that Mahaprabhu organized a whole meeting with all his devotees and all the inhabitants of Navadvipa who were following him the night before his leaving Navadvipa. Without only those few people knew, next day Mahaprabhu will accept sannyas. The rest of Navadvipa was just meeting him for the last time in Navadvipa. And he started to instruct everyone in Navadvipa to chant holy name, to chant Sri Harinam, and how to chant Sri Harinam, like Acharya-lila. We know Mahaprabhu is Krishna in his Acharya-lila, especially as a sannyas, teaching by example. In Braj, Krishna is is Acharya in another sense. No? We cannot follow his example literally in every single sense of the term. So he starts to interact with affection with every devotee. One of his devotees that comes at this moment again is Kolavich Sridhar. We spoke about him. Remember, he was the one who was selling banana leaves. And Mahaprabhu will go with him to his shop and always bargain with him and ask for the banana leaves and I want to pay only half price for them. And when Kolavich Sridhar didn't know what, sometimes Mahaprabhu will snatch the banana leaves without paying and just run. And on this day, last day, the Mahaprabhu is about to Kolavich, it's like a pumpkin, a very nice pumpkin as an offering to Mahaprabhu. So Mahaprabhu says that in the words of Srila Sridhar Maharaj and says, after I have taken all from you during all these years, on this day you are bringing me this, I cannot resist. And he gave that to Sachi and said, please prepare some sweet rice with this pumpkin. So Mahaprabhu honored that with his devotees. So finally comes the day of his leaving, basically, So the night continues, and the next day in the morning, when Mahaprabhu is about to go from Navadvipa to Katwa, it is say again, Sachi already knew about this. So she knew this is the day my Nimai is leaving. So Mahaprabhu in the morning, very early in the morning, he leaves the house, and she finds Sachi on the outside of the house, on the door. And she had been crying the whole night, standing there, waiting for him to pass. Whole night, awoke and crying and crying. So Mahaprabhu addresses her and tries to console her and express his love and gratitude and reassuring her nothing will be missing from you. I will visit you daily, as we will see. She's coming every day to eat the offerings that Sachi will make for Mahaprabhu, and the place will be empty, and Sachi will think I'm going crazy. Maybe I never cooked anything. I offered the deity an empty plate, and Nimai will send devotees from Puri to confirm to Sachi, I ate that shak that day. I ate that rice, that it was great. Like this. Prabhu tries to console his mother. From Sachi only tears are coming. She's like a figure of stone. She cannot move, she cannot speak, stamba, totally paralyzed. So eventually Mahaprabhu continues his journey towards Katwa. And when the day comes, and all the devotees in the morning, generally Mahaprabhu's devotees will go to his house to see him, to awake him up and sure. And they go and they find this unique scene this moment. They find Sachi still standing on the door and crying and crying and crying and crying. So eventually they ask him, what's going on? Why are you here? Why are you crying? And Sachi says, you can enter the house and you can take all of the possessions of my Nimai. Take whatever you want. And in this way, everyone eventually got to know Nimai left now when he's about to take sannyas, and he's on his way to Katwa. So it is said at that moment, all the different associates, one started to cry and fall on the ground and faint. Another, in desperation, started to run towards Katwa. no? Trying to stop him from doing such a mad thing as accepting sannyas, basically. So basically the news started to spread, and the whole Navadvip knew our Nimai is about to accept sannyas. Our Nimai. So all Nadia was aware of this at one point, and all of them were lamenting more and more and more, crying deeply. Like, so, so that on one side in connection to Sachi, and again, we have another character who may be the most affected by all this, who is Vishnu Priya Devi. So in the same way that practically in any of the biographies of Mahaprabhu, we will find a description of Mahaprabhu's leaving this world. You won't find that, basically. In the same way, practically nowhere you will find a description of the how to say, unbearable pain that Vishnu Priya Devi had to go through, and how she experienced this with Nimai. So, but there is a mention, brief mention by Lochnadas Thakur in his Caitanya Mangal in that connection about how this happened. So, but he only to a point mentions that. He himself say, I cannot describe this in detail. This is too painful for me. So it is too much. I will just briefly mention that. So the idea, of course, it's that Vishnu Priya Devi hears that Mahaprabhu is about to accept sannyas a few days before he's about to leave. And she approaches Mahaprabhu and says, is this true? Now, this rumor has reached my ears. And Mahaprabhu said, yes, I will accept sannyas. So you can imagine. Vishnu Priya was a young girl, basically. And she started, of course, immediately. Try to imagine that idea. Out of the blue, your husband say, I accept sannyas. And you are like 16 years old or something. So she tried to console her, and she said, like, I mean, I am the most fortunate woman in the universe by having you as my husband, and now you are leaving me, which implies I'm the most fortunate woman because of you, but because of not having you, I will turn into the most unfortunate woman in the universe. And what will happen with Sachi? Immediately she started to think beyond herself. What will happen with Sachi Ma? I mean, you leave. You are the man of the house, if you will, traditionally. So I'm just almost a girl. What will happen with your mother? So Vishnu Priya suggests you can stay here at home and do your bhajan, do your kirtan, as Sachi suggested also. And I will support you. I will serve you in whatever you need. No need for you to leave. If there is something we have to do. Or another option, if you don't want that, okay, you accept sannyas, but I will commit suicide. No, you say, it's too much for me. I cannot deal with that. But whatever the case, you stay with your mother. That was his main point. If you want, stay at home and we will serve you. If you don't want to stay at home, somehow stay with your mother, but I cannot deal with this anymore. And Mahaprabhu says, no, you cannot do any of those things. None of those things will happen. I will accept sannyas and you will stay with Sachi at home. You have to support, serve, and console her, basically. So Vishnu Priya insists, please do not accept sannyas. Please do not accept sannyas. Crying. And then Mahaprabhu starts to cry profusely, crying. And it is said that Mahaprabhu starts to cry for us at that point, because he knows I have to accept sannyas in order to people take me seriously and make my Yuga Dharma successful in this world, and I can save all these jivas. By not accepting sannyas, I won't be able to do that. So Mahaprabhu started to cry for compassion for all the conditioned living beings of the universe. By thinking, I won't be able to accept sannyas, I won't be able to deliver, he started to cry from that side. And when Vishnu Priya realized why he was crying, she started to cry from that side now. And she felt, I cannot interfere with his desire. I cannot be an obstacle for that to happen. So the two of them were crying and looking at each other. What to do? So Mahaprabhu embraced Vishnu Priya and said, you know what, my beloved, in this lila, we all have to cry. This is the nature of this lila. I will take sannyas and you will be crying all lila for me in separation. And I will accept sannyas and I will be crying all day. As we know, what Mahaprabhu did mostly as a sannyasi was cry. So the nature of this lila everyone, all of us will have to cry. Like implying what to do. We cannot interfere the nature of the lila. We are to contribute to that. So it is said that from that moment on, as you will know, Vishnupriya, of course, accepted that, and eventually she continued at home worshipping Mahaprabhu in the form of a very unique deity called Dhameshwar Mahaprabhu, and following a very strict sadhana while worshipping Dhameshwar and just chanting the names. And by each chanting, she will put a grain of rice, and at the end of her number of rounds, she will cook that rice, and that's the only thing she will eat, and so on. A very high example, venerable for us. So Srimati Vishnupriya Devi ki jai. So in this way, Mahaprabhu's sannyas is getting closer and closer. Two verses come to my mind, very beautiful verses. We cannot explore them in detail now, but at least let me mention them. Two verses from the Bhagavatam, 11th canto, which generally are ascribed to Ramachandra, but our commentators, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and others, also connected them with Mahaprabhu, because there are some parallels. So one of them says, my Guru Maharaj likes these verses a lot. Say, Deyam sada paribhav jnana vishtadoham tirthashpadam shribavirinchi nutam sharanim vrityartiham pranatapala bhavabdiputam bande mahapurushate charanarvindam. And the second one says, Tyaktva sudustejasurepsitaraja lakshmim dharmistarya vachasa jadagaddaranyam mayamrigam daitaripsitu ambadavat bande mahapurushate charanarvindam bande mahapurushate charanarvindam. So these two verses conclude with the line, Bande mahapurushate charanarvindam. I offer my pranam to the great personality, Mahapurush or Mahaprabhu, for the lotus feet of that personality, whom, and the verses describe those feet and the qualities of those feet. So the very first verse says, Dhyam sada paribhav jnana vishtadoham. To him, on whom one who meditates on those feet is immediately freed from all contamination, basically. Shiva virinchi nutyam sharanyam. Pranatapala bababditotam. Those feet are worshipped by Shiva, by Brahma, by great personalities. They are worthy of surrendering to them. In brief, and those feet are the proper vehicle to cross the unsurmountable ocean of birth and death. So that's a beginning introductory pranam in the first verse. And the second verse gets more specific, says, Tyaktva sudustyaja surepsita raja lakshmin. That personality renounced the most great Raja Lakshmi, or great divine queen, who was even hungered by the demigods. So one can understand that as Ramachandra getting detached from Sita when he sent her to the forest and so on. But our acharyas compared that with Mahaprabhu accepting sannyas and leaving Vishnupriya. Dharmista Arya Bachasajja Dagadaranyam. By the curse of one Brahmin, he had to go to the forest. So also in Ram-lila, there is a curse of a Brahman. There's always Brahmanas cursing in the lila. and Ramchandra had to go for exile to the forest, as we know, more than a decade. And here we have also seen how a Brahmin cursed Mahaprabhu to go to the forest. Forest means accept sannyas. Basically, that's the notion of the forest. And of course, our ultimate forest is Vrindavan. So that's the ultimate purpose of sannyas. That's the forest we want to go. Mayamrigam ambadavat. And also, he was chasing. In one sense, it could be said as the golden deer. And this is the pastime when Sita asks Ram, please go behind that golden deer, and she's kidnapped by Ravan. But also the Sanskrit in that section lends itself to be interpreted that he was chasing all those people who were affected by Maya and totally like illusion. Like the sannyas of Mahaprabhu was, as we saw, to chase after us, basically. That's the conclusion. That we are totally like delusional under the influence of Maya, and Mahaprabhu accepts sannyas to bring us back to our senses, if you will. And of course, the conclusion is Mamde Mahapurushati Charanara. Therefore, I offer my pranam to the lotus feet of such a great Mahapurush, Mahaprabhu ki jai. So just brief mention of these verses, but very nice to study them in detail with their commentaries. And they're quite connected with Mahaprabhu's sannyas, as we can see. So, leaving Sachi and Vishnupriya behind in one way, Mahaprabhu goes towards Katwa. He crosses the river, the Ganga, and swims like totally determined, and basically reaches Katwa. And of course, many other people reached there because again, the news were spread. So they were there, all of them were there almost except for Sachi and Vishnupriya, as we mentioned. So Mahaprabhu approaches Kesha Bharati and requests from him, please give me sannyas. So Kesha Bharati, as part of the Lila, said, but you are too young. No, remember, he was 24 years at this point, 24, 25 there. So I mean, generally, if you are married, if you are supposed to accept sannyas, that will happen when you are, I don't know, at least 50 years. Generally, a little bit more even. But he was 24. No, so Kesha Bharati said, you have a family, you have a widow mother, you have a very young wife, and you're 24. I first have to ask them for their opinion, blessings, and permission before giving sannyas to you. So please, you obtain their permission and return. So it is said that when Mahaprabhu heard that, immediately started to run to Navadvipa, like totally determined, getting the permission and returning. So when Kesha Bharati saw the way in which Mahaprabhu just ran, but he felt this young boy, he has such a personality that he can obtain whatever he wants. So no need for him to go to Navadvipa. He will obtain their permission. So he called him back. Come. So at this point, everything was started to prepare for the ceremony and so on, but many people had arrived knowing Nimai Pandit will accept sannyas. That was a big tumultuous situation. And again, many of them were not agreeing with the idea. Most of them were opposing to such a thing. How such a beautiful young boy will accept sannyas, leave his family, leave us in Navadvipa. So many of you started to create like agitation. Even some of them started to threaten, we will burn the ashram of Kesha Bharati if he gives him sannyas. This type of intense dynamics. And in the midst of such like a tension and intense climate, Mahaprabhu starts a Sankirtan. So he starts to sing and dance and roll on the ground and cry, and everyone starts to join. And supposedly that was the day of sannyasi, but the whole day passed in Sankirtan. So there was no like final decision. And the whole Kirtan and Harikatha extended whole day, whole night till the next day. So we go to the next day where all the rituals were started to be organized for the ceremony of sannyas. Chandrasekhar Acharya was doing the ceremony, the ritual. So then we reached the tragic scene of Mahaprabhu's hair being shaven. That's described in Shastra as like one of the most shocking moments for most. His most beautiful curly locks of hair being just like shaven, and he becoming beautiful in another way. It's not that he was shaven and it was totally beautiful, but from another perspective, basically. My Guru Maharaj shares always the idea of when once he went to India some years back, like more than 2 decades, with one of his disciples who is a lady, and at that time she was monastic, and she was wearing saffron and she was shaven, which was not classical for ladies, but she was doing that. And he mentioned that, in India, many people was like, and some of them approached them and were really like charmed by seeing a shaven lady. He was making this point. Of course, he's not saying every lady has to be shaven, but like implying there's another type of beauty in that if you are doing that from a proper place. And so Mahaprabhu was doing that from a proper place. There was a certain beauty in that detachment, if you will, of the most beautiful hair you can imagine. That was real detachment. He had the most beautiful hair you can imagine. So it is said that the barber, was there. His name was Madhu. So he had the service of, he had to be the Judas of the Lila or something. Someone had to do that. So, but he was, they gave him the razor, you say, razor, but he was like not, he was trembling. He was not like feeling like I cannot approach that and what to speak of doing that. I mean, such a beautiful boy, such a beautiful hair, everything's in place perfectly, and I will shave that. It's like I will kill that beautiful picture. No, I cannot do that. And all the multitude is crying and screaming and shouting and want to burn the ashram. So that tension is going on. So some of them were not, but somehow he started to shave Mahaprabhu, no, gradually. He couldn't do that quickly because it was traumatic even for himself. So he was shaving one part and he will like drop the razor and start to cry and tremble and look, and everyone will get even more crazy. Some of them, it is say, were not able to contemplate this scene when Mahaprabhu was being shaven, and they start running and leaving the place. Some other went crazy at that moment, they say. No? And at that moment, Mahaprabhu started another intense kirtan in between being half shaven. And he started to roar and sing and dance. So the shaving chapter was in pause for a minute, for a good time. So eventually at the end of the night, again, the shaving continued. So try to imagine the dynamics, no? With someone like Mahaprabhu, you never know what will happen next, no? So finally at the end, this Madhu, the barber, ended the shaving of Mahaprabhu. And again, he was beautiful, but the barber was totally traumatized. It is said that after shaving, Mahaprabhu said, I cannot shave anyone else in my life any longer. So he changed his work and he became a sweet seller. No? He couldn't no longer think about shaving anyone else, basically. So after the shaving came the moment of sannyas, the conferring of the mantra and the name and the order and so on. So interestingly, in this connection, we know that Kesha Bharati, the sannyas guru of Sri Caitanya, was coming from the Sankara Sampradaya, was coming from a lineage of Advaita Vedanta, which basically diametrically opposes our conclusions, interestingly. So we could add that on top, no, to the idea of, okay, Mahaprabhu's sannyas was a preaching strategy, but receiving that order from that lineage was even a bigger preaching strategy, because at that time, the sannyasis coming from that lineage were especially like prestigious and respected. So he used that external thing to form to take the attention of the public. But of course, some people will criticize Mahaprabhu saying, so he accepted sannyas from an impersonalist. So he was an impersonalist. He received that connection. But it is mentioned that before Mahaprabhu received the mantra, this is mentioned by Murari Gupta in his first biography of Mahaprabhu. Before Mahaprabhu received the mantra from Kesha Bharati earlier that day, he went to Kesha Bharati in private and said, Gurudev, I've had a dream. And in that dream, you came to me and you gave me the mantra, gave me a mantra, the sannyas mantra, in a dream, all that, before officially receiving that. So this is the mantra you gave me, he says, Tattvam Asi, which is one of the Mahabhagyas, so great, like, how to say in English? Like enunciates, like statements of the Sankara Sampradaya. Tattvam Asi means you are that, which generally the followers of Sankara tend to interpret like you are that. That is Brahman, so you are Brahman. Which of course, on one level, I mean, you can very easily feel that's contradictory. How you can be that? Now, if you are you, and that is that. How can you be that? But that's another, we won't analyze the whole mantra now. Srila Jiva Goswami does that job in his Sandarbhas, many pages. But basically, another possibility of Tattvamasi is you are his. So you, the Jiva, are his, belong to Krishna. So that's how Mahaprabhu interpreted the mantra. So when he asked Kesha Bharati, we could say that in the Lila, Kesha Bharati was a Mayavadi till that moment. But when Mahaprabhu said, you gave me this mantra, Tattvamasi, in the dream. Is this correct? Is this the mantra you are going to give me now? But when Mahaprabhu told Kesha Bharati Tattvamasi, he pronounced the mantra with his devotional conception of the mantra. And immediately, actually, Kesha Bharati was initiated by Mahaprabhu first. in the devotional conception of the mantra. And Keshavarti received the Tattvamasi from Mahaprabhu. I said, yes, that's the mantra I will give you. But he was now receiving the new conception of that mantra. So that will be the new conception he will give to Mahaprabhu, no? The devotional Tattvamasi. So that you follow the idea, no? So before Keshavarti giving the mantra, Mahaprabhu gave the mantra to him. So he initiated Keshavarti first, in that sense, into the devotional conception. So again, Keshavarti is first converted by Mahaprabhu to the Gaudiya conception, and then he gives the mantra to Mahaprabhu. So he's not following Mahaprabhu any Advaita Vedanta lineage or something. So again, in the ceremony, okay, the mantra is given. Keshavarti gives this mantra, which is not the mantra that nowadays sannyasis receive. It's a different mantra, but the conception is the same. And now comes the moment of giving a name to the sannyasi. Generally, you know, when someone accepts sannyasi, there's a change in the name of the person. So Keshavarti thought about which name can I give to this sannyas. Generally, the names given somehow are connected with the person, with the personality of the person. Some part of the name has to do with what the person is about. And Keshavarti, again, strictly speaking, technically speaking, came from this Advaita Vedanta lineage, where there are 10 main names that they will give. And there are different lineages, like Saraswati, like Bharati, his lineage, and so on. So he was Kesha Bharati. So generally in his lineage, all the sannyasis will receive the name Bharati and something else. So it was expected he may give the name of to Mahaprabhu of something Bharati. But we know that he didn't give that name, because he thought, what name can I give to him? And he gave a very unique name, which is Sri Krishna Caitanya. Sri Krishna Caitanya. So, of course, Sri Krishna Caitanya, what does it mean? What's the meaning of Krishna Caitanya? Krishna consciousness. Chaitanya means consciousness, Krishna means Krishna. So Krishna consciousness, because Mahaprabhu was giving Krishna consciousness to everyone. And also, if you want to take the name Krishna Chaitanya about regarding being Krishna conscious, who is the most Krishna conscious person? Sri Radha. And that's what Mahaprabhu is about internally. So the name can be connected to the internal reason for Mahaprabhu's descent, and the external reason are also the internal reason for Mahaprabhu's sannyas. External reason and an internal reason also. The world, it doesn't sound external, it sounds pretty deep, but that's still connected with the external reason of his descent. Remember, in the first class we mentioned there's an antakarana and bahir karana. External reason for Mahaprabhu coming, establishing the Yuga Dharma. Internal reason, in brief words, tasting Radha Bhav. So his sannyas will be connected with these two reasons as well, simultaneously. So Mahaprabhu is initiated with that name, Sri Krishna Chaitanya, which again is totally unusual for a sannyasi, but he was a very unique sannyasi as well. So when he gives Krishna the name, everyone starts to repeat Krishna Chaitanya, Sri Krishna Chaitanya. There's even one associate that it is said that after hearing the name, he no longer could say anything else but Krishna Chaitanya, Krishna Chaitanya. He became like mad repeating Krishna Chaitanya. He was known eventually as Chaitanya Das, because he could only repeat that name. And then Keshavarti gave Mahaprabhu the danda. But interestingly, he gave the ekadandas, the ekadanda, which is the danda they give in the Sankar Sampradaya. So externally, the form remained as Sankar Sampradaya, the cloth and the danda, but the internal substance was totally devotional. So he gave Mahaprabhu the ekadanda, which is one stick. No, Gaudiya sannyasis nowadays receive three danda, which actually is called tridanda, but there are 4 sticks, but which implies mind, body, and words. And there's 1/4 danda, which is the jiva danda, which represents the notion of permanent individuality for the jiva, not like at some point I realize that I'm Brahman, because eka danda means that everything is eka, one, everything is Brahman. But Gaudiya, no, there's a jiva danda. The jiva remains forever, and with mind, body, and words will serve Bhagavan. So when Mahaprabhu receives this Ekadanda, he starts to chant another a verse from the Bhagavatam, well-known verse that generally is given to sannyasis. Tam sastaya paratmanishtam adyasitam purvatamair maharishi viyam tarishami durantaparam tamamukundam grimisheva jaiva. Which basically, again, no time for explaining the verse in detail, but it basically speaks, I will accept the service of Mahaprabhu. This verse is recited by a sannyasi in the Bhagavatam in another section, and it says, I will cross the unsurmountable ocean of birth and death by being firmly situated in the boat of the service to Sri Mukunda. So basically, it's a mantra pronounced by a sannyasi in the Bhagavatam, which presents the idea of devotional renunciation, because it speaks about Mukunda Sevaya. So Mahaprabhu is reciting that mantra with his Ekadanda in hand, like implying, what's the meaning of him, for him, about sannyas? It's not about Brahman, but Mukunda Seva. And as we know later, we shared the other time, Nityananda will take that Ekadanda, will say 1, 2, 3. No? He kept that for a time at least. No? So all of them start to glorify Mahaprabhu, Sri Krishna Caitanya, and as you may imagine, Mahaprabhu begins a new kirtan as a sannyas. His first kirtan is Sri Krishna Caitanya. And he starts to dance with his guru, Kesha Bharati, and the two of them ecstatically join in Sankirtan. So that's a clear proof he was converted. And they take they have the dandas on one hand, the kamandalu on the other hand. Kamandalu is like water pot. But in the ecstasy of Sankirtan, they throw that in the air and start to embrace each other and dance and roll to the ground and so on. So again, as we always mention, on one level, sannyas can be seen as something very cruel, like he's leaving everyone and everything. Why? But at the same time, as we mentioned, it's something totally necessary to take all of us to our home, basically. He's traveling, he's preaching, he's enlightening souls, he's teaching by example, and so on. So the Sannyasa-lila and Mahaprabhu being in separation in Puri, as we already spoke in the previous series, all this separation chapter is a section we have to go through for eventually enter into the eternal union of Navadvipa. So Mahaprabhu's lila begins in Navadvipa, then goes to Puri. 1 minute. Okay, I wanted just to, I would say sneeze, but it didn't happen. So Mahaprabhu lila starts in Navadvipa, then goes to Puri. In Puri as a sannyasi, he teaches by example, but all his example in Puri and Gambhira is teaching us how to enter Navadvipa again forever, basically, because that's where we want to go. So his sannyasi said Naimitika lila is a temporary lila, but at the same time it's totally worshipable by us. It's not like, oh no, his sannyasi is lower. In our situation, that's even more important. That's why Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami in Chaitanya Charitamrita, the bigger part of the book is the Madhya Lila. He has 3 divisions, Adi, Madhya, Antya Lila. The Madhya Lila is almost the double of the other parts. And what's the Madhya Lila? Mahaprabhu's sannyas and preaching and instructing. The other parts are relatively short because he feels this is so important for us to go through. So this sannyas lila of Mahaprabhu is as an Aishwarya lila, basically. Knowledge, renunciation, detachment from the world. It's not like he's our tomboy in Navadvipa and intimacy and affection, but his sannyas means like, oh, there comes Maharaj. Something, not like with fear, but creates this situation, because again, that's the idea of sannyas, creating that situation so people will pay attention to that person. So it is not possible for us to approach Mahaprabhu fully in that mood for eternity. That's why, as I mentioned, Bhaktivinoda Thakur prays, when Nimai will abandon his sannyas and will return to Nadia and execute his Sankirtan in the house of Srivas Pandit, like implying there's the full intimacy. But in order for us to reach that intimacy and to properly appreciate that, first we have to go through the Aishwarya. In order to reach the Madhurya or the intimacy of Mahaprabhu in Navadvipa, where he's eternally as Nimai there, we have to understand and go through the Aishwarya of Mahaprabhu, his example, his teachings, his detachment, his mood of separation, all the things we learn, we have to go through if we want to join him in Srivas Sangam eternally. So similarly, sometimes Krishna in Vrindavan will show some Aishwarya when killing a demon, if you will. Similarly, Mahaprabhu is, as a sannyasi, is exhibiting Aishwarya, killing demonic mentality. He's not killing per se people cutting heads with Sudarshan in hand. He almost does that with Madai, as we mentioned, but he didn't. But he's killing the anarthas. And the sannyasis has to do with that. Even the sannyas, the danda has something called the prasa, which is something at the top like this, which is kind of like an axe. It has to do like for cutting the anarthas of through one's example and precepts, starting from oneself for sure. No? Sannyasa is not just about you have to change all the things. You're in Maya, you have this anartha, all those things. First, you have to tell that to yourself. And as much as you walk the talk, you can say something to others. No? So I would like to conclude. So we have spoken about Mahaprabhu's sannyas from the perspective of mostly of the external reason for his descent. Again, disseminate Yuga Dharma, save people, but also there is an internal reason for his sannyas, which is linked to the internal reason for his descent. Because remember, when we speak about Yuga Dharma and Mahaprabhu spreading the holy name, actually that's like the consequence of his tasting Radha Bhav. Mahaprabhu's tasting, first purpose for his descent is tasting Radha Bhav. He's living that experience, and that experience starts to overflow him, and that becomes what he's sharing with others. You follow? So my point is, sannyas of Mahaprabhu is connected with that Yuga Dharma, but since Yuga Dharma is a consequence of Mahaprabhu's tasting of Radha Bhav, then sannyas of Mahaprabhu must be connected with Mahaprabhu's tasting of Radha Bhav also, because his Yuga Dharma is a byproduct of his tasting of Radha Bhav. Do you follow my point? No. Yeah. Mahaprabhu is doing prachar, as we always speak, but he's doing achar. He's having his own personal discipline, internal tasting of Radha Bhav. That's how my Guru Maharaj describes prachar. Now, some people say, what's preaching? Preaching means that you practice in such a way that your practice starts to fill you so much that starts to overflow and starts to sprinkle others. And others become affected by that sprinkling. That's preaching. It's not just, I do not practice, I'm not too serious with myself, but I sit and I tell people what to do. That's preaching. No, that's not preaching. That's not changing any hearts. That's not creating inner transformation. First, you have to be transformed yourself. And the more you are transformed, that will become apparent to others. If you are really a person who is going through constant inner transformation, try to imagine you are close with that person, you start to become like, transform yourself, basically, because that inner transformation is overflowing and affecting others. So that's how Mahaprabhu is, as we mentioned, delivering others. Sometimes he's not even speaking. He's just in silence with Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya for 7 days, and he's converting him through his example, only sitting there. So that's an important point when we speak about preaching and so on. No, to understand, preaching is not just I learned what to say, and I have the discourse, and everyone should agree, and if not, they are in Maya. It's not my fault. No, I have to practice myself in such a way that preaching is just the natural consequence of people getting in touch with the fruit of my practice, basically, the fruit of my transformation. If I'm not transformed, I cannot expect all of you to be transformed. That would be hypocrisy. No, you should be transformed in this, and immediately the boomerang returns. And how about you, basically? No? So again, this is in connection with Mahaprabhu. Sannyasa of Mahaprabhu is connection with Yuga Dharma. Yuga Dharma is in connection with Mahaprabhu's internal experience. So therefore, Mahaprabhu's sannyas has to be connected also with his experience of Radha Bhav. So let's share some words about how Mahaprabhu's sannyas is connected with his tasting of Radha Bhav. Because again, there's an internal side to Mahaprabhu's sannyas, an internal side to Gaudiya sannyas in itself. No? Externally, preaching strategy, some relative adjustment for the society and times, and take attention of the public, blah, blah, blah. But that's relative. No? In some time and places that may not be necessary as any preaching strategy, but the internal reason, that's another thing. So to begin with, this will take some minutes, so I beg your patience, please. There's one nice astakam written by Narahari Chakravarti Thakur, which he refers to Mahaprabhu very nicely. He offers pranam to Sri Caitanya Dev, calling him or asking him, who is Mahaprabhu? And he said, he's Lampata Guru. So that's a very unique form of addressing him. Lampata means, in this case, cheater. So he's the guru of all cheaters. He said, there are many lakhs, many cheaters, but he's the guru of all of them. Now, like, in which sense? Now he accepted sannyas. Like we know who he is. Now, in Krishna, in Vrindavan. Now, this playboy of Vrindavan, he's like a monk. Something like this, no? That's one way of saying he's a cheater, he's a liar, he's a thief, but that's another connection. So he accepted sannyas and his clothes are kumkum nichitam. Now the color of his clothes is like kumkum nichitam. Kumkum is there's a word for that in English?
No.
No, turmeric is like yellow. Kumkum is like red. Whatever, it's like some powder than the gopis with whom the gopis decorate their breast, their chest, basically. So, and that color, similar color to that, is the color of Mahaprabhu's sannyas cloth. So that will be, actually, that red color is in connection with anurag. Now, in Sanskrit, the word for red is, one of them is raga. And raga also means passion or attachment. So anurag means passionate love. So that's what the gopis have for Krishna. That's why they decorate their hearts with kumkum, with color red, because their hearts are burning with a passionate desire for pleasing and serving Krishna, especially Radha's heart. Now, it's decorated with that color, and that's the color that Mahaprabhu is choosing for dressing himself. Actually, technically, the color is more red. Sannyas cloth is not red, it's saffron. But when you have red kumkum and you dilute it with something, it may become more saffron-like. So the connection here is gopis, and Radha in particular has this kumkum on their hearts, but in the ecstasy of love and separation, in particular from Krishna, torrents of tears are falling from her eyes and falling on the kumkum, and that kumkum is no longer red, but becomes diluted and attains this saffron color. So that mood of Sri Radha's love, passionate love, kumkum, in anurag, in separation from Krishna, that's the specific mood that Mahaprabhu will imbibe as a sannyasi. He will be Krishna in the mood of Radha, in separation from Krishna mostly, as we see in Jagannath Puri. So that's the color. As we mentioned, each color represents, each emotion is represented by a color. So this particular color has to do with that, with Sri Radha's love for Krishna in separation. So that starts to speak about what Mahaprabhu's inner reason for his sannyas is about, basically. So again, this is what this kumkum is in Radha's heart, and whatever is in Radha's heart, Mahaprabhu is trying to glorify that, basically. And Krishna is trying to serve that, of course. Krishna is taking Radha's feet to his own chest, basically, also. Also, the foot soles of Radha are red colored. It has, I don't know how it's in English, lac. Alta, they say in India, the type of substance, whatever. In English, I think they say lac. But this like red paste that is on the, and Krishna tries to take Radha's feet and puts them on his own head or his own heart. Famous line of Gita Govinda, Dehi Pada Palavam Mudaram. When Jayadev writes, Krishna is asking Sri Radha, please bless me by putting your lotus feet on the petals of your lotus feet on my head, basically. And that's the most complete Krishna we worship, says Prabodhananda Saraswati in Radha Rasa Sudhanidhi. Asa Gana Mohana Murti Vichitra Kili Mahotsavola Sitam Radha Charana Biloditam Miruchirasi Khandam Harim Bande. The most condensed form of Krishna about rasa is that form of Krishna which is falling on the ground and taking Sri Radha's feet on his head. I remember once Bhakti Swarup Sridhar Maharaj told, that's the God, that's the Krishna we worship. The Krishna who is with his head on the ground and his Radha feet on his head. That's the most complete in rasa form of Krishna. So basically, in other words, this Mahaprabhu is Krishna covering himself with the anurag of Sri Radha, which is represented by this color, red, kumkum, and saffron mixed with the tears. So again, all this is in connection with Mahaprabhu's inner desire for descending. Because again, in separation, Mahaprabhu is entering into Radha Bhav, Vipralamba Lila. That's why Mahaprabhu is going to Puri. Puri is known as Vipralamba Kshetra, which is like the field for culturing separation. So again, when Radha's kumkum become mixed with her tears, that becomes saffron color, and that's why we Gaudiya sannyasis wear this cloth, because that represents the cloth of Mahaprabhu's bhav in Puri, basically, as a sannyasi. So also, Mahaprabhu accepts sannyas because why? As Krishna in Vrindavan, he's witnessing the degree of renunciation of the gopis. I mean, the gopis are leaving everything for him, as we know, especially the gopis, because the love of the gopis is of such nature, they have parakiya. Parakiya means extramarital illegal affairs. So in order for them to love Krishna, they have to transgress everything that you can imagine, and they have to leave everything behind, which is not the fact for other relationships. For example, Yashoda loves Krishna in Vatsalya. She doesn't have to leave Nanda Maharaj for loving Krishna. You follow? Sudam, Sridham love Krishna in Sakya Bhav. They do not have to leave other friends to love Krishna in Sakya Bhav. But the gopis have to leave everything and everyone. So their parakiya can be expressed, basically. So the gopis renounce to so many things. There are so many verses saying that. The famous one comes to mind is the one pronounced by Uddhava, who says, Asammaho charanarenu jusam mahamsham vrindavane kimapi gulmalato shadinam jadustya jam sajanam aryapatam chahita vijur mukunda padavim shrutibhir bimrigim. Where he's praying to be born as a bush in Vrindavan, some bird there to be blessed by the dust of the feet of the gopis. But he's saying that the gopis there renounce to everything that is so difficult to renounce. Even for sannyasis, sometimes it's difficult to renounce certain things. But the gopis immediately, without a thought, just flute call, running after that. No consideration, my house, my reputation, the village, family. There was not that type of filter. It was just straight to the point. So Krishna felt, okay, my gopis, my Radha in particular, in Braja Lila, they have renounced to everything to that point for me. And Krishna in the Bhagavatam is saying, I cannot reciprocate in kind. I cannot renounce. You are leaving everything and everyone for me. And Krishna says, I cannot do the same because I have so many devotees. I'm God. So many people is worshiping me. I have friends, I have cows, I have parents, I have other forms in Vaikuntha, and I have so many devotees, and I have to reciprocate with them. But you only have me. You are only living for me and giving everything for me, leaving everything behind. But I cannot reciprocate in the same way. So that's when Krishna finds himself like, I'm in debt. I'm indebted to you. Your love is defeating me. It's overwhelming me. So Krishna, on some way, say, okay, you have renounced to so much in Braja Lila, leaving everything behind for me, that now as Mahaprabhu, I will accept sannyasa and leave everything and everyone in Navadvipa for you. No? Well, Krishna saying that to Radha in particular, who personifies, of course, all the gopis. No? Radha left everything for me. Now as a sannyasi in the mood of Radha, I will everyone and everything for her. No? In pursuing her bhav, basically. In trying to be empathic with their experience, basically. And trying to somehow pay my debt of love to them. Somehow, trying to try it at least, as we know. Because for Krishna, I have to pay my debt, but I don't know how much the debt is, even. I don't have the number, because there is no number, it's unlimited. So how can I pay a debt that I don't know how much? But I cannot nonetheless remain like, okay, I don't know, so I won't do anything. I have to do something. So Mahaprabhu is that. He's trying to do something to pay an eternal debt. And since the debt is eternal, Gaur Lila is eternal. Because Gaur Lila is Krishna eternally trying to continue paying and he's never finishing, but he continues trying his best. So in this way, Mahaprabhu is trying to give up, as Krishna's Mahaprabhu is trying to give up all that Radha gave up in the Braja Lila, in the mood of Radha. Like I don't know, if you have some friend who has cancer, if you will, no? And that friend of yours is losing his hair, so you shave your head also to accompany, to be empathic, basically. No, or the person, I don't know, is using certain clothes that they have to use because of the thing, you wear those same clothes. No? Like we are on the same page. So similar here, Krishna with Sri Radha. No? One friend of mine calls Mahaprabhu the empathic God. No? Krishna be trying to have full empathy to enter into the shoes of Radha and to properly reciprocate with her love. So basically, Krishna's Mahaprabhu is Krishna showing how much he loves Sri Radha, how much Sri Radha, he loves the gopis. And he is abandoning his own mother, Sachi, his own beloved wife, Vishnupriya, the whole of Navadvipa, the whole of Vrindavan, basically, if you want, and showing how their love is superior to everyone else's love. So he's even leaving his mother, as we say in Spanish. I don't know if that word applies in English, but Krishna is not a mamachari, like attached to one's mother and remember. He's attached, of course, in a transcendental way, but in this case, for the sake of Radha's love, he's leaving everything behind. Lord Chandas Thakur calls, considering all this, Lord Chandas Thakur calls Mahaprabhu's sannyas Adbhuta sannyas. Adbhuta means like astonishing. It's not just a normal sannyas. There is so much astonishing reasons behind that. So there we find Mahaprabhu in the mood of Radha, in separation of Krishna, trying to pay back his debt. And an important point here is that we have a role to play in that. We are invited and expected to serve Mahaprabhu's feelings in those moments. That's not a cheap thing, but that's our hope. Again, Mahaprabhu is Krishna in the mood of Radha, in separation of Krishna. And that's why we may say, that's why we chant Krishna Nam. We are chanting Krishna Nam to relieve Mahaprabhu in the mood of Radha, in separation from Krishna. For example, also in the Krishna Lila, that's how some devotee here who has affinity for Manjari Bhav, for example, I think I mentioned that the other day, they will consider the Mahamantra in those terms. They will consider Hare Krishna Rama, 3 names of Krishna, and they will be singing, thinking, I'm singing this for my Praneshwari, my Swamini, my mistress Sri Radha, to relieve her in separation from Krishna. I will chant Krishna's names to her, as a service to her, to relieve her fever from separation of Krishna. Or the same idea can be applied in direction to Mahaprabhu, who is Krishna in the mood of Radha, in separation from Krishna. So it is said that in this way, and sometimes the separation is so extreme, as we know, that they feel themselves, I am about to die. So our role eternally in the Lila is try to save their lives. Try to save the lives of Mahaprabhu, trying to save the life of Sri Radha, try to save the life of Sri Krishna in separation from each other. So that's that will be part of your service in eternity. So better you are preparing yourself for that. So you realize it's not a cheap thing. It's not that I go there to Golok Vrindavan and I eat some kachoris and play and I do some service also. No, it's not like this. Your role will be crucial there. You will be more than required. Not to feed one's ego by the arrangement of Yoga Maya and the grace of Swarup Shakti. They will need us there. No. Now we feel more in terms, I need so many things and Krishna give them to me. Give me, I need this, I need this. But eventually there should be a paradigm shift. And when you are in the Lila, you will feel, oh, they are so needy. Our gods are so needy. We are not worshiping a God that is self-satisfied, doesn't need anything. That's Narayan in Vaikuntha. And the devotees worship Narayan because he's God. He's to be worshipped. We love him because he's God. But we don't approach Krishna or Mahaprabhu like that. We don't think he's God in the Lila. We feel he's so in need. In separation from, he has this need, he has this other need, so many needs. Like when we know Uddhava told Nanda Maharaj, oh, you are so fortunate, your son is God, and you feel him like your son. You are so fortunate. Uddhava say, Nanda Maharaj say, Uddhav, I heard that you were a sage. You're a very wise person, but now that I hear you speaking this nonsense, I realize you are not wise at all. How my Lala, how my Krishna can be God? God doesn't need anything. He's totally satisfied. Krishna is the opposite of that, Nanda Maharaj said. He's always asking me things, trying to steal sweets from my pockets. He's crying when he's not receiving what he wants. And on top of that, he's stealing, he's naughty, and he doesn't know his rendezvous with the gopis. Now, what to speak of that? that's not in his scope. But so he said, how can he be God? I mean, God is, the notion of God is this one. So the point is, we are worshiping, our deities are so much in need, but it's not a need out of existential void, out of Maya. It's a need out of the necessity that comes when you are full, basically. For example, when Krishna plays the flute in Rasa-lila and the gopis run after the flute, it's not that Krishna or the gopis are lacking something. They are full in themselves and they are getting together to celebrate their fullness. But when you are full, that creates another necessity out of fullness. Here in this world, we feel necessities out of emptiness. And we are running here and there trying to fill those voids with objects or whatever, people. In the higher realms, there's necessity, but out of fullness, not out of emptiness, out of love. As my Guru Maharaj will say, when two people who are full meet, they feel the necessity of celebrating their fullness. So that's a necessity, celebrate. So celebrate takes the form of lila, and so many things happen in the lilas, we know, and there's so much necessity. Actually, there's more necessity there than anywhere else. We think we are needy here now. That's a joke. Try to think how much in need is Sri Radha in separation from Krishna, or Krishna in separation from Radha. That's real necessity. Our necessities, I mean, we feel this is so important, but if you compare one thing with the other, you realize my necessities it's just a joke, basically, that I'm taking too seriously, and that's my problem. So to advance spiritually means to really understand which are the real necessities and how much in need they are there, and I have to go there and render some service. And well, that's a long topic. I can get lost in that direction, but it's an important point for us to understand. No, I mean, actually, we may not be on that level, but an advanced sadhaka will engage in bhajan from that side. Will be totally absorbed into serving those extreme needs found in the Lila and Radha and Krishna, or Gurudev himself. My Guru Maharaj likes to quote this verse from Rupa Goswami: Tunde tanda vinira timbitanute tundavali lapdaye karna krodha kadambini gatayate karnar budevya spriha cheto prangana sangini vijayate sarvendriyanam kritim no jane janita kiyadviramrita krishneti varnam dai. So this is arguably the most important verse connected to the chanting of Srinam. And Rupa Goswami says, I don't know how much nectar is in these two syllables, Krishna. I cannot start to fathom how much is there. When my tongue enters in contact with the name, with these two syllables, immediately I feel desperate, and I feel the need of having thousands of tongues. That's the subjective experience. Only one tongue? Why one tongue? How unjust this is. I need 100. That's the prayer of an advanced devotee. No, not give me money, give me house, give me more tongues to do proper justice to the nectar of the name. Only one tongue, I feel I'm not honoring such a thing. And when the name touches the whole of the ear, I start to feel desperate and pray to Krishna, give me thousands of years, only 2 years. No. So the point, my Guru Maharaj quotes this verse and say, that's the situation of the Guru or an advanced sadhu. He's a desperate, she's in a desperate condition. She's in need. Give me more tongues, give me more ears. And we are, as disciples, are to offer our ears and tongues as an extension of his own tongues and ears in his service. That's why Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta will say to his disciples, he said, I'm not asking anything from you, but just give me your ears. Pay attention to what I have to tell you. Of course, he knew by giving this, you end up, I mean, everything starts here, but the whole colonization of our hearts began from the ears. So that's how it works. But the point is, Guru is a desperate person in a transcendental sense, not mundane. And we are to assist Sri Guru. He needs more ears, more tongues. So we are to dedicate our ears and tongues as an extension of theirs. And that will take us to that same similar type of service in connection to Radha and Krishna, Mahaprabhu, and so on. So, one more thing, if you give me time. Another purpose for Mahaprabhu's sannyas is, again, as Krishna says in the Gita, and in the Bhagavad, Naparayam nirabadya samjayam sasadu kritam vibudaya sapiva jamavajan durjarageha srinkala sambrishyatat pratyatu sadam. He said, I cannot repay my debt to you, even if I try for a lifetime of Brahma. And Sanatana Goswami comments on this, say, but nonetheless, I will try. Once in a day of Brahma, I will come as a sadhu, Mahaprabhu, and I will make devotees for you as a way of trying to chant your glories. Krishna saying to Radha, I will come as a sadhu and I will preach and trying to make devotees for you so they can assist you. So that's another reason why Mahaprabhu is taking sannyas for preaching. No, because he wants to make servants of Sri Radha that as a way of paying his debt back on some level, no? Something. No? So that's another way of us conceiving our own transformation as devotees. No? I want to become a better devotee so Mahaprabhu can pay his debt back in a better way. No? I'm trying to serve Mahaprabhu in that way. It's not that I try to become devotee for myself. I'm trying to assist Mahaprabhu in this high depth of love he has. Like one devotee once said, when we are chanting japa, we are doing Sankyanam. Sankhya means like counting. Of course, we should chant, not count, but we are somehow counting. And he gave the example as a very greedy person is counting his money. No? In our case, we will count our beads, but trying to help Mahaprabhu to pay back his debt. Like we are paying a little bit for him to be able to reciprocate. No? So in this sense, we can consider our our chanting of Nam is a service to Krishna in his form of Mahaprabhu. No? Because again, Mahaprabhu is Krishna indebted, acknowledging the debt, trying to pay it back, and asking us, help me, become a devotee of Radha, become a devotee. No? Our lineage in Gaudiya Sampradaya mostly points to that direction, Manjari Bhav, and Priyanarma Sakya, which also has to do with becoming a devotee of Sri Radha. So Mahaprabhu is spreading that and asking, please embrace that gift so you help me to not be so indebted, basically. So in that way, we could say that Krishna is coming as Mahaprabhu to taste the type of worship that Radha is experiencing. And his movement has to do with distributing that love, basically. And in that way, that's a way that Mahaprabhu is trying to pay back his debt, basically, making devotees for Sri Radha. So again, in our attempt to preach, or whenever some devotees are engaged in spreading the good tidings, the good news, such campaign should be ideally conceived internally with this awareness, aware of this thing. Although externally, you may be engaged in administration, management, and this, and you have to print the book and distribution and headaches, dealing with other people and so on. In the deepest sense, we should remember, this is an internal service to assist Mahaprabhu, to assist Krishna as Mahaprabhu paying back his debt of love to Sri Radha, which is a totally deep and high notion. Even though externally it may seem you are trying to make new devotees, it's not just to have people and to get money or something, it's to help Krishna to pay back his debt, which is a big debt he has. So so that's basically the idea. Mahaprabhu is trying to pay back his debt, especially in Gambhira, as we know, his tears and tears and tears where he tried to go through the experience of Sri Radha and trying to be empathic as much as possible, experiencing what Radha experienced in separation from Krishna, especially in the Brahmar Gitas we spoke in our series recently in Jagannath Puri. So this is mostly the secret of the Sannyasa-lila of Mahaprabhu. So I hope you feel the difference between only dressing as a sannyas to attract the people of the time and all this that has to do with the real main purpose for his descent, the internal lila. There's one more lila, and with this I promise I finish my presentation, that we may connect with this. Why Krishna Mahaprabhu accepted sannyas? Because it is said that at one moment Krishna himself in the Braja Lila accepts sannyas on some level, as we will see, and Sri Radha will accept sannyas in reply to that, and then now Krishna Mahaprabhu will accept sannyas to pay back that sannyas, if you will. No? So this is narrated by one Siddha Manohar Das, which is a sadhu who is considered to be a perfected saint, who wrote the book by Dr. Vilas. So I will mention briefly, it's a long story that will take a whole lecture, but we can share that in more detail at some other moment. But the point is that in one lila in Vrindavan, Krishna was waiting for Sri Radha, and Radha was on the Abhisar. Abhisar means like love journey, trying in the journey that you go towards meeting your beloved. That period when you are journeying in that direction called Abhisar. But she was about to get into the Abhisar, but so many obstacles came on her way, which is usual on a daily basis. That's what Parakya is about. Rupa Goswami describes Parakya as a type of love which is full with obstacles. If there are no obstacles, there's no Parakya, basically. There has to be opposition. Srila Maharaj will say, opposition increases the harmony. It creates that contrast. If there's no opposition, there's no beauty, ultimately, he will say. So Parakya is filled with this because it's a secret love, forbidden love, and so many obstacles on a daily basis Sri Radha has to go through. Jatila, Kutila, Abhimanyu, all these dysfunctional personalities living in her house that are totally against Krishna. In one sense, of course, now they are not like bad people. All of them actually love Krishna because they are in the Leela, but they play that role. So she has to go through all that, through society, meeting Krishna in the midday without no one noticing that in Vrindavan. So there's so much like obstacles there, but that creates the very experience of Parakya. But in this particular day, Sri Radha was not able to make it. She was not able to go out of her house, and she was not able to meet Krishna. And Krishna was waiting for her. Generally, the situation is the opposite. Sri Radha is waiting for Krishna. On many occasions, Krishna never comes. He met Chandravali on the way. He was taken to her. So now some reaction came to him. But the point is, Sri Radha didn't come, and eventually Krishna somehow entered into man himself. He became angry with Radha. She didn't come, and I came, and I prepared the whole kunja and decorated everything, and she never came. So I am frustrated with all these ladies and these issues with women. Krishna say, too much headache. No, all this coming and going, ups and downs. She loves me not. She didn't come. Enough for me. No? So in that way, Krishna accepts sannyas. In one sense, no, it's not accepting nothing officially, but he starts to dress in saffron. No, and he takes from him and say, I don't want anything else to do with golden stuff, because Krishna's cloth is the color of Radha's complexion. As you know, and Radha's clothes are the color of Krishna's complexion. Like yin yang. You have two colors, but one color is in another part of the other one. So Krishna throws all his pitambara, his yellow cloth, and he just dresses like a monk, like a renunciant. I don't want to see anything golden. When Radha is in man, it's the opposite. She doesn't want to see anything black. And everything around her is the color of Krishna. Her eyeliner, her clothes, her different bodily clothes and different decorations. So she orders paint everything white, and she puts sandalwood paste with tinge dyed with black, with white, and no more sham color. Now Krishna is in that mood now. So to make a long story short, sorry, I have to. Eventually Radha gets to know about this. Krishna is angry with you. He's dressed in saffron. He doesn't want to know anything from you. He's in man. He's angry. So Sri Radha herself dresses as a mendicant. She accepts sannyas. And one day she goes to the house of Yashoda, And on the way to the house of Nanda and Jasoda, everyone in Vrindavan becomes like, wow, who is that sannyas? So charming. Everyone is charmed in Braj by seeing. Nobody is recognizing who she is. No? She arrived to Jasoda's house, Nanda's house, and they receive, oh, a sadhu came to our house. No, let's bring him back. And Jasoda was concerned by Krishna. No, my Lala is angry in this mood. He now accepts sannyas. I mean, he's supposed to be the heir to the throne of Braj, of the cowherds, and he became a monk. What will happen with the whole kingdom of cowherds here? So Jasoda was concerned for him. Now a sadhu is coming, and it's such a nice sannyas, and generally these sadhus give instruction and give blessings, so on. And also they ask for madhukari, which is some donation in exchange or something. So again, I'm making a long story short. Even though it seems I'm making it long, I'm making it short. So eventually, Jashoda starts to speak with this sannyasi, and she starts to tell the situation with Krishna, and the sannyasi say, "Can I see your son? Maybe I can help him." Yeah, I will bring it to him. So Jashoda says, "Krishna, come. A very beautiful sannyasi sadhu came," and Krishna said, "I don't want to see anyone." No. But Jashoda said, "But you now are dressing as a sannyasi, so you may be happy to see another monks like you." So she started to speak in that logic. No, now you are a monk came, so you should be happy with that. So come. So finally, Krishna comes dressed in saffron, and she sees this sannyas, and he becomes like, oh, his anger kind of dissipates. No, so he starts to speak, and so there's some exchange among the two, basically. And at one point, of course, Sri Radha starts to enlighten Krishna, to soothe Krishna. And at one point, Jashoda leaves the scene, and it's Krishna with Radha, and the two of them as sannyasis, basically. So at one point, Sri Radha, as a sannyasi, says, "Well, now is the moment of asking, begging madhukari, begging something in exchange." So Krishna said, "Yes, I'm willing to give you whatever you want." So the sannyasi says, "I'm begging your man. Give me your man. Man is your angry. So give me your anger." In other words, don't be angry with me, basically. Stop being angry. Let's get to. So Krishna, of course, realizes who that sannyasi was, and Krishna gave his anger back to Radha, basically, his anger. So eventually, happy end to the whole story. And of course, Jasoda comes and sees Krishna now in a happy mood, and she's so blessed. Oh, this sannyasi is so special. And Krishna said, "Yes, he's so special. I'm a monastic. He's a sannyasi. Now it's so late. We cannot allow the sannyasi to live by himself alone now. And I will have his association. So he can sleep with me in my room today." And so I say, of course. Minimum one night. So in this way, these other charming stories there to mention Sri Radha accepting sannyas in Krishna Lila. Now in Gaur Lila, Krishna Mahaprabhu is accepting sannyas, trying to reciprocate back to her sannyas. So many ways we can internally also conceive this sannyasi. So anyhow, some words I want to share with you today concerning Mahaprabhu's sannyas, which again is not technically a lila pertaining to Navadvipa per se, but also it's a lila that, if properly understood, will take us ultimately to Navadvipa for eternity. And after this sannyas lila, of course, comes the whole section of Mahaprabhu in Puri, which we already studied 3 months ago. So now after this, you can go back to those lectures and study those audios again, and so on, and then go back here and so on. So but again, as I mentioned in the first meeting, the whole purpose of this series of lectures was not just to let's share some funny stories and be entertained for a week, but let's be moved in our deepest heart and get committed, because the leelas are not to entertain us. The leelas are to commit us, to make ourselves get closer to the deity of our sampradaya, who is Sriman Mahaprabhu, with all that it implies. So it's my prayer that today and through this series of lectures, something of that may have happened in each one's heart, including mine, some change of heart, so we may get even a little bit closer to appreciating Gaur Lila, to understanding our own identity as members of the Gaudiya Sampradaya, and to increase our commitment with what Mahaprabhu is about, with what Mahaprabhu is trying to give us through Sri Guru and the Vaishnavas. So thank you so much to all of you for inviting me here and being here hearing me, because if you are not there, I wouldn't be sharing the things. So I need you as well. So I'm very fortunate for your patient hearing. So thank you so much. And of course, today will be our last evening kata, and tomorrow morning we have one more meeting in the morning, 8:30, when we will have Ishtagosti. We will exchanging questions and answers. So if there are any questions that you may have concerning today's kata, I will pass that for tomorrow. Already we are 2 hours almost speaking here. Or any other questions you may have, we'll meet tomorrow one more time in the morning, and again, hopefully soon again. So Srila Gurudev ki jai, Sriman Mahaprabhu ki jai, Sri Krishna Chaitanya Dev ki jai, Sri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, Sri Ekadasi ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Gaur Premanand Hari Vo, Pancha Kalpataru Vyasya Kripa Sindhu Vyaivacha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki